everybody wants to plan for the perfect shot. I always say plan for the unfortunate shot, which is when things go south, will your setup, your arrow, and all that stuff carry you through when you make a mistake? And it's going to happen. It's not just if, it's just when.
Greg Glesinger, a guy that's filmed with juries for multiple years, has his own TV show, completely a student of the game when it comes to hunting whitetails, and he shares the one arrow setup for whitetails that he has perfected.
I would say for anybody, 175 to 200 grains on the front end of your arrow, in my opinion, is going to give you the best results. It just flies truer, it hits harder, it's going to get through, all those things.
We talk about using a decoy, talks about how and when he uses them.
When a buck comes to the plot and you got a decoy, he's either in the mood or he's not. But when he is, it's over.
So without further ado, let's get into this episode with Greg Glesinger.
Here's a very debatable talk. We want comments on this thing. We're going to get some right here.
Greg, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. Good to see you, Jake. How's things with you?
Things are great. I'm really excited to dive into some arrow talk and some whitetail talk, and it's always a pleasure to catch up. You've had a lot of success over the years chasing all sorts of different animals, and I feel anyone that has hunted long enough, they have the ability to have enough information to change things and things that might not be working quite exactly as good as they should be. And we were talking here recently. You've developed some pretty strong opinions on arrow setups, and right now, folks still have time to make a audible, change something, maybe look at what they have, and see if it falls within these parameters of kind of what you've tested and have optimized. Where have you shifted when it comes to arrow setup? And I want to direct this more towards whitetails specifically.
Okay. Probably pushing a decade ago, I was very passionate about fast and flat. When I say fast and flat, I'm talking about an arrow weight that would be, I went as low as 385 total weight, no heavier than 410, which would put my speed roughly around 312 to 315. Kinetic energy is going to be somewhere around 80 pounds. I can't remember the slug weight numbers, but more than adequate, right? And I was doing just fine with that setup, and I liked it because it was one pin out to 30. And remind me about to talk about that a little later once we get through this arrow conversation. I was breaking arrows. I wasn't getting 2 holes. We were tipping them over, but it created a lot of stress for me because I like to see stuff die in a reasonable timeline within the plot or within eye range, and the only way to do that is through hemorrhaging. And I struggled a few times with blood trails because I only had 1 hole. And depending on where that hole is it low or is it high in the animal, it's going to fill up the cavity before it comes out. So it added a lot of stress to me because of that setup. I was happy with it from the other flip side, which is where I put the arrow, it hit because it was getting there so fast. We all talk about, deer dropping once you release the arrow, and that's, without question factual. And so I was trying to offset that and try to maximize those opportunities. And so I just went that side of the parallel of arrow weight. As of lately, when I say lately, I'm talking here in the last probably 7 years, I've completely shifted my paradigm. And this does apply to whitetail hunting and it doesn't. Let me get through this, which is I went to right around 460 grain total weight. But the key to the weight that I changed was the same arrow was exactly the same. The difference was I went to a heavier insert. I went to 50 grain insert and 125 grain broadhead. So that gave me 175 total weight on the front end. And when I started doing that, the penetration was absurd and the flight of the arrow was way more consistent and true. And I really noticed that downrange, say north of 55 yards. Now I know that doesn't really apply to whitetails, but I go west a lot, and that was a big deal for me. And it carried the energy farther downrange as well and still hit hard. And so I'm like, well, 7-8 years ago, I'd actually take 2 setups. I would have two setups when I go west. I would have my whitetail setup with the, we'll call it a 400 to 385 grain arrow in the truck in case something happened. And then I'd have my elk setup that was way heavier, and that was usually around 510 to 520. And I would have that setup, which what I would use on the western side of things, and then I would switch back to the whitetail setup when I got home. And I'm like, it just took so much time and energy to have two setups, two arrows, two sighting ends, two all that. I'm like, okay, that's when 7-8 years ago, I'm like, what is that magic number for me to have one arrow that's going to carry me through the western tour and the whitetail season? And with all of my testing, that's where I settled on, and it is so perfect. There'll be guys that are going to argue that to shoot an elk, you need, 520 to a 600 grain arrow. I'm not going to argue against that. I've had pass throughs on the last two elk that I've shot. Not a problem. They're all, keep in mind, all those shots were within 40 yards, to be transparent. But on the whitetail side, I went from 312 to 315 per second to about 303 to 304 feet. So I lost, we'll call it roughly 10 feet, but I'm getting true pass throughs, not by little, by lot. And my blood trails are a blind man can find. And so it's giving me way more comfort, way more enjoyable by doing that different setup. And so our kill rate has gone through the roof, and I could even testify this not only for myself, but with Casey. He's the sidekick to wherever we go. And everybody wants to plan for the perfect shot. I always say plan for the unfortunate shot, which is when things go south, will your setup, your arrow, and all that stuff carry you through when you make a mistake? And it's going to happen. It's not just if, it's just when. And when we switch to this new setup, our kill rate has gone through the roof. I'm not saying all the shots are perfect. We have two last year that I'll be happy to share the footage of. One was myself and one was Casey that was too far back. But the deep penetration that we got because of this setup was so deep and so true. Mine was a true pass through. Casey's wasn't, but it drove so far in there, it ended up being fatal. With our other setup that I had from 10 years ago, 9 years ago, I don't think I would be able to sit here and tell you that. I don't think we would have found them. They probably would have died, but is it, days? Is it weeks later? I don't know, but we all found them. Mine was the next morning and his was the next morning. So it was all fairly reasonable, and it was cool night, so it wasn't a big deal. So now with all those successes, it's going to be hard for someone to convince me otherwise that having I actually went all the way up to 200 grains on the front end. And I would say for anybody, 175 to 200 grains on the front end of your arrow, in my opinion, is going to give you the best results for penetration and all that stuff on any type of animal. It just flies truer, it hits harder, it's going to get through all those things. And you will see a difference in the flight and all those things, how the groups are going to shorten up. It has less wind drift. If it's just whitetail hunting and you're going to say, hey, I'm never going to shoot more than, 30 or 33 yards, whatever your max is, maybe you want to be somewhere around a 415 to a 420 and gain that extra speed back. And a lot of it depends on your pound, your draw length, all that other stuff. So just because I'm pulling 74 pounds, 30-inch draw, so that's obviously some advantages there. But Max, our producer, we've been working on his setup, I'll give you an example. Another thing, when you do your arrow setup, if this is your arrow rest, we'll just play this as the arrow rest. When I was with Max in camp last year, his arrow was about 3 inches outside. I don't know, can you see that? Do I need to move it?
Yeah, no, I see it perfectly.
His extra arrow was it was almost just short of 3 inches from the arrow rest to the insert. Okay. And he was complaining about his results. And I said, well, first off, and he's a 28 or 28 and a half inch draw. And I think he's pulling 72 or 74 pounds. And I said, well, first off, this is doing you absolutely no good. It's meaningless. Because the longer the arrow, the more it's going to flex going down range. the waffling effect. And yes, you can change that with spine, but I always say change that based on the unnecessary length of the arrow. So now mine, and I got Max to do the same thing, and he called me just the other day, and he's just beaming with excitement of how much more accurate he's shooting downrange. I always allow a 1/4 inch between the end of the insert and my rest. So if this is the rest, I'm going to give it roughly a 1/4 inch. That's it. No more, no less. It's going to stiffen up the arrow tremendously, and you're going to lose a lot of weight on the arrow because, an average grain per inch in an arrow is going to be anywhere from 8.1 to probably 10.2 is going to catch most of them. So if you go 3 inches, unless you just use 10, that's 30 grams, right? So if you lose 30 grams off of this front end, now you can put the weight where you want to put it now, which is, do you want more here? Because now you shorten it up, you made it stiffer. You may have to go to a different spine. That's true. But if you cut it, it's going to increase your spine, even if it's a 300 or 350. So it's going to give you a lot of different options. I'm a guy who likes to put the weight where I want it to be and not let the arrow tell me where I needed to put it. And then the flip side of it, while I'm on this topic, is everybody should be aware of any time that you put anything on the back side of your arrow. So I'm talking wraps, vanes, lighted nocks, whatever it may be. For every 5 grains you put on the back end of your arrow, you have to offset it by 20 grains on the front to get your FOC back to neutral. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you can see, I'm as plain as. I like meat missiles. I'm not here for looks and shows and car shows. I'm all about meat missiles and what's going to do the job. You'll never see me have a wrap. This will get changed out for lighted knock, but other than that, it's all about the front end of this thing and how we're going to achieve our numbers. And so since we've done that, the results are just flat out remarkable. And it's going to be, I just don't understand when people come up to me and say, "Hey, Greg, what could you tell me about archery or hunting?" The first thing I always ask is, if you're a bow hunter, what is your arrow weight? And I will tell you 95% of the guys that I talk to don't know. And that's okay, because they go in, they buy the arrows, and they go home and they shoot them, and so be it. If you're going to shoot 15, 20 yards, it probably really doesn't matter. But if you're going to start stretching your opportunity, if you're shooting 20, you want to go to 40 and you can dial that in, you just doubled your opportunity. So why not? And we always go down this rabbit hole. And the arrow is just so overlooked of how people lay it out. It just depresses me every time I see these guys, and I'm like, call me later. This is what we'll do, and I'll help you get through it. And 9 times out of 10, they'll call back and say, "Man, it's completely changed. I'm shooting better, more penetration, etc." And so, there is a trend. There's a few people online that talk about, having super, super heavy arrows. Not against it. I just don't diminishing returns. My FOC, I like to be somewhere around no less than 15%. Through my tests, once you break 18%, it seems like it's diminishing returns. So I try to be that 15 to 17% seems to be the sweet spot. And it seems to be working. So until I find something better than what I'm doing now, and I'm constantly testing stuff downrange, just doing different things, odds and ends, just to see. And up to this point, I haven't found anything that says, you know what? Because I like the combination of speed and some slug weight and some punch power. Mm-hmm. And my being somewhere around 305 feet per second, I can be 1 pin out to 30. So I set my setup, which is 1 pin out to 30. When I go to 20 with my 30-yard pin, I'm going to be about 2 1/4 to 2.5 inches high. Well, I know that, but at 20 yards, there's a high probability he's not going to drop 18 inches. Okay, it's going to get there too quick. But what it does allow me mentally is when I scan the timber, or I'm in a food plot, or whatever the case may be, and I start ranging, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's 30, that's 30, that's 30, that's 30. I roll the top pin. I'm like, anything inside of that, it's top pin, and I go. I don't have to range. I don't have to think. I don't have to do anything. Less movement, all that.
Yeah.
And so when you start getting more into the mental things of whitetail hunting or any type of bow hunting, the less things you have to think about that you can just react and go, the more success you're going to have. And since I have moved into that realm, which is 1 pin out to 30, it's so much more enjoyable because I don't have to stress.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're inside of 30, you're in trouble. It's 1 pin, it's rock and roll, we go. Because if he's going to be north of 30, you're probably going to have time to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But inside of 30, sometimes it happens quick. And then sometimes there's a lot of guys that they got a 20-yard pin or a 30-yard pin, and they shoot the 30 at a 20, and they go over the back. But if you do this type of setup, you go with the top pin, and he's on. You don't have to think about it.
The Whitetail Podcast is brought to you by Moultrie. One of the first cameras I ever bought was a Moultrie, and they've come a long way. Whether after your first deer ever or this is your 20th year of hunting, Moultrie has you covered. Their cellular trail cameras have no SD card, very easy to use and set up right out of the box. I love to pair the Power Mag with a Pro Series camera. The Moultrie cameras are affordable, effective, and reliable with US-based customer service, 2-year warranty, and just a great camera. So the next time you're in the store and you're trying to decide what camera to buy, I encourage you to try a Moultrie if you want to support the podcast. I think there was I went down the heavy arrow rabbit hole probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Sure.
And the drop was stressful because it's like, is he 18 or is he 29? Because if that's the case, I need to have my slider on 29 if he's at 29. Because if there's a plus or minus of 4 yards, my margin of error went down. So, I mean, it was just, I didn't like it. And so I went to a somewhat of a lighter arrow. To be honest, I'm in the process of getting some more arrows built. And so that's selfishly, this is why I'm having this conversation too, because I'm like, all right, this is what Greg said. I'm going to give this a try. But you're exactly right. In the moment of truth, your brain is likely, if you're even if you're very experienced, you still can get caught up in the moment and you just eliminate all the movement and thought process of, everything in this area in this pinch is 30 or in. Wait for a good opportunity, slightly quartering away, put it where it needs to be. Plus or minus 2 inches, not a big deal.
No, that's why. And then, since I figured that out, it's way more enjoyable. Hunting's way more enjoyable because I don't have to stress over it. I know he's inside of 30, he's in trouble. I don't have to move. All I have to do is draw. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to think. I just know it's top pin. I don't have to process. Anytime you get that mental thing out of you having the process of what is happening and when, and did he go from 29 or 31 to 18? Okay, well, is he 18 or is he 22? Am I going from my 30-yard pin to my 20-yard pin? That's stressful. And then you got to guess. If you do the setup that we're discussing, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's huge. And to have the balance of, enough punch to the arrow as well. And that's where, everyone can probably relate to a scenario where the deer's coming and it's in the timber, right? It's the timber setting, so you don't necessarily have a ton of different landmarks, and sometimes the depth perception can get a little off, and you draw back, and then, you're mid-draw, and there was a doe looking at you, so you stop, and then you draw, and then you didn't realize he walked 4 or 5 more yards, and that's the start of a bad story about every time.
Exactly. Or who knows? He sees you draw, and he bumps 5, 7, 10. Right? He was at 15 and now he bumped 12 or 10. If he's still inside at 30, you're at full draw. It doesn't matter. You don't have to regroup.
Yeah.
There's so many scenarios that I've played through that since I've been doing this, it's like, oh, you're so done when he walks in.
Do you set up for most of your archery stands or blinds to be in that 30-yard bubble? Or what is your effective whitetail archery range? Because that's something that's also very debated across the web.
Yeah. It has a lot to do with a lot of factors. Does he know you're there? Does he not? What's the wind? I really don't like shooting, I don't have a problem shooting it at 50. I would prefer not. I like to be 40 and in. I really prefer to be 30 and in. All of our whitetail stuff, we try to be that 35 and in through bottlenecks, food plot design, pinch points, scrape trees, decoys, all that type of stuff is, we try to be plus or minus 30 yards or in. But there is times where that doesn't happen. But it's got to be a perfect scenario where he's calm, he has no idea. If he's the lone deer on a plot, because I've watched so many hours of footage, of us shooting deer with a bow, And I don't know this. I'm certain of it because I have all the filming to show you that the deer that you're shooting at, it's amazing how the other ones react to it. And depending on the distance of where that deer is that you're shooting at, if there is an animal that's between you and the deer that you're shooting at, that deer in front of you that's closer to you is going to drop first because it's the sound of the arrow. It's not the bow, it's the sound of the arrow. If they're within reasonable distance, right? Because of the way the sound travels. So sometimes deer will react down based on the rest of the herd around them. And so I'm only going to push the element of north of 40 if there's nothing in front of him. There's no other animals that I know that can domino affect his movement into a situation. If he's a lone deer and it's 45 or 46 and I'm comfortable quartering away, I'd cut it loose. But I shoot a lot. I'm not, and I'm going to aim bottom third because he's probably going to drop into it. But you can't aim off of it in case he doesn't. And should be fine. But there's so many scenarios that you have to play in the moment of what you're going to do. But more often than not, we're inside of 30 or 32 or 33, and it's usually not much of an issue.
Yeah. That's really fascinating in terms of, where's the deer positioned if it is there's multiple deer in a group setting. I've never considered that, but it makes perfect sense.
I got hours of us killing management bucks that they all react off the arrow. All of them. He could be, does and bucks could be 30, 40 yards away from the deer you're shooting. They all drop within a quarter to a half a second, if not 0.2 of a second. They all go. When you start slowing frame by frame by frame, it's fascinating. And so depending where they are, they domino effect into each other. Yeah. You can just see the wave frame by frame. It starts here and then it works its way out.
Yeah, that's crazy. You would never catch that if you did not film your hunts and had the ability to do that. A guy could hunt the whole life and probably not put that together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So to summarize, you're 175 to 200 on the front, and that 15 to 17% FOC is kind of the magic number, and then don't add unnecessary weight to the back.
Yep. A meat missile. We're not here for car shows. We're here to kill stuff, And I get it. I love to have cool stuff too, but I grew out of that and said, you know what? It changes the performance of the arrow. And here's a very debatable talk. We want comments on this thing. We're going to get some right here. I have done a crazy amount of testing between 4 fletch and 3 fletch on expandable heads. Okay, I'm going to clarify. I can't justify adding another 6 to 8 or 9 grains of another vein. I can't do it. Now, if you're going to do a fixed head, a real beveled head or something like that, I would have to do some more testing to back that up. I've done my own, and I still haven't seen nothing that's crazy enough to switch. But I could see why someone would do that. But on mechanicals, I'm a huge mechanical guy for whitetails. I'm just a big believer in it. I can't ever see why someone wants a 4 fletch. Now we're going to blow up the comments, which is fine. I'd love to hear people's feedback that are factual, and I'm always willing to learn because I'm always trying to get my setup better. And if someone can really give me some strong data points that can verify it, I'll build arrows to their specification. I'll try it myself.
Yeah. When's the last time you shot a deer with a fixed blade broadhead?
27 years ago.
Oh my gosh. Is there a story where you lost a deer and it crossed your mind where you said, if I shot a fixed blade broadhead, I probably wouldn't have lost that deer? Has that happened in the last 27 years?
No.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. That's one of those, I guess from your perspective, it's not really debatable, but people would debate it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure there's experiences. I'm sure there are. That's why there's a lot of people buy fixed heads. There's a supply and demand issue. I get it. We are now shooting the Beast broadhead, and that thing is deadly. I mean, it is remarkable. The hole, how sharp it is, all of that. I mean, I'm taking it bison hunting this fall. That's how much I believe in that head from an expandable.
Wow. That's
I
very
will shoot a fixed head on my elk hunt, not because I want to, because I'm required to. The outfitter will not let me use a fixed. But he's had this notion for over 2.5 decades, and nothing will change his mind. And 25 years ago, the expandables then versus today are
sure.
just like anything else. Technology gets better, but he will not have a conversation. It's you shoot fixed or you don't come.
What fixed blade broadhead are you using?
Supposed to be getting some beasts here any day now.
Okay, they have fixed blades.
Well,
we gotta bleep this. We gotta bleep this out.
I didn't want to say competitor's name.
Fair, okay. Because that's.
But yes, I will be shooting
question.
Beast, but they're not out there. They're not out there.
Okay, that's where I was curious. What would be? It's like the debatable. Well, if you did have to shoot a fixed blade.
Yeah, I didn't want to go down that path.
Yeah,
because we're doing some R&D.
Very cool. Well, that's pretty exciting. That's very exciting. Well, anything else on the arrow stuff? Otherwise, we're going to get into the whitetail talk. Any
you know what? I would love to, if someone has some data ammo to share, I am all about it. I would really love to learn. I'm a student of the game, been doing it a long time, but there's more to learn. And so if someone can teach me, I am all in, and I would welcome that.
Yeah, and I know you sincerely mean that too.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah. So we're gonna. I want to rip the Band-Aid off here real fast. I know it's something that you didn't necessarily was super excited to talk about, but you live in Wisconsin, grew up in Wisconsin, or I guess you didn't grow up. When did you move to Wisconsin?
Oh man, time's clicking by. 29 years ago would be my best guess. I'd have to sit down and do the calendar, but I think it's 29 years ago.
Yeah. And really the root of this is, last year you found a 240-inch deer that presumably died of EHD.
That's per Iowa DNR. That's not me. That's per Iowa DNR.
Their perspective on cause of death?
Yes.
Okay.
That was my opinion, but they confirmed my opinion. Okay. They were hands-on on the farm.
Yeah. Was there, and what I'm getting at here, and there's really no elegant way to talk about this topic, and I just want to ask on a very high level. So you have CWD and EHD. Neither of us are biologists. Neither of us are scientists. So I want to lead with that. But Wisconsin was very aggressive with CWD management around the time that you became a resident. And so then last year you have a scar of an incredible animal that died of EHD. In your opinion, if you want to share it, what do you feel is the greater threat to whitetail hunting when you look at these two beasts that somewhat are regionally more prevalent?
Wow, that is a tough question. I really fall back to data on a lot of things. I try to go down the data list and let the data speak to me and where my mind wants to go. And on EHD, it comes back to the midge, and we have more of it in droughts, and if you have more stagnant ponds, obviously that doesn't help. So some of the stuff I think has a lot to do with weather, 100%. Some of the stuff we can somewhat fix or somewhat change, but with CWD, the DNR really can't really do much about EHD, in my opinion, because it all comes back to the midge. Unless we come out with some type of spray, I know I'll give it a free plug for, I think it's called Defense. I lost the name of it, but
it's the like a liquid that you put into
water. Yeah, I'm just learning into that, so I apologize if I botched it up, but so I'm trying to learn up to that. It sounds very fascinating. But the DNR is not going to get involved with that type of thing, right? But CWD, every DNR is very much, we got to have testing, all this stuff. And it's burning my memory, very unfortunately, is when I moved here in Wisconsin in the early late, would have been early 2000s. It'd been late 1990s. It was in the early 2000s when Wisconsin hired a bunch of sharpshooters to clear out the herd in southern Wisconsin. And I mean, clear it out. I mean, they hired cops, SWAT teams. They would pile buckets of corn, piles of corn, and they would go out there at old dark 30, 2 a.m., and they would just slay them. It turned a lot of people off here in the bottom third of the state. And I don't even know if some of these hunters ever came back.
So I pulled a report, and part of that said deer hunting license sales have not returned to pre-CWD levels.
There you go. So I think I'm scared more about CWD, not because of CWD. I'm more concerned about how the state DNR and regulatory bodies address it and how they attack it. That's what scares me, because we had such a far left end with Wisconsin. Now other states are finding it through testing and has become more talking about it. I hope that the other states look back at history and look at Wisconsin and go, that didn't work, because our herd's coming back. Yes, but it took 20 years to do it. It's not the same. The deer density is not the same, and I still ask the question, which nobody can answer to me. Out of all that work that we did 20 years ago, whatever that timeline was, where are we now, and what do we know that's any different than what we knew? And the answer is we don't know anymore. Yeah. So I said, so what was the reason for doing that to begin with? And they said, well, they thought it was the best course of action. Well, if we don't learn from our mistakes, then what are we doing here? So I hope that these other states don't do what Wisconsin does and start pulling triggers on thousands of whitetails.
Yeah. And that's in that report there, it basically said in a summary, Wisconsin's approach is more aggressive and costly than other states, yet has not been effective. I mean, that's the summary of that. And so these are things that are obviously top of mind, because we all enjoy, if you're listening to this podcast, you enjoy whitetail hunting, and you more than likely want the best for the resource. And I think your opinion on that makes total sense. And I feel like the other thing too is a lot of people get CWD and EHD mixed up. Like a guy that he hunts, but he's not really trying to learn a lot of these things, where I think sometimes that term gets interchangeably used incorrectly. And so that's another reason I bring it up, as a point of education, where EHD, commonly known as blue tongue, is related to midge. CWD related to prion in the soil, and we really don't know a ton about it. So I just want to make that very clear, where it's and it's such a charged topic, and I wish there's more data, to your point, so someone could come up with a fair conclusion.
Yeah, I think it's like, I hate to use this analogy, but it reminds me of when we sit down and have serious conversation about cancer. It seems like we're chasing something we don't understand. We've been at it forever, when we're no farther really ahead than where we were. Mm-hmm. And so I just hope we learn from our lessons and we don't duplicate what Wisconsin does, because it was devastating.
Well, I mean, and I the reason I asked too is, you obviously hunt in Wisconsin. That's where you live. Mm-hmm. But it sounded like part of your decision-making process of not fully focusing on Wisconsin was related to how they managed that resource.
Yes, correct. And that's why I started looking elsewhere in other states to go hunt, because I was so frustrated with the Wisconsin DNR at the time. I love the sport too much. I'm like, I'm not going to quit. I'm just going to pull my resources and time and energy, go somewhere else. And that was the trigger point 20 some odd years ago for me to start looking. I was just fed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, now we're going to talk about some exciting tactics that's going to help someone get hopefully their next big deer, their first big deer, because I think oftentimes, and people are at different stages of their hunting journey, right? There's a guy that's out there trying to kill his first Pope and young buck. There's a guy out there trying to kill his first 150, his first 170. And, there's a guy out there that's trying to kill his first 200-inch deer, right? And I feel like, based off of saying that, do you think each of those steps and each of those journeys are drastically different from a tactic standpoint?
Yeah, I think we're all so different. We're all different individuals, personalities, mental capabilities. We all handle pressure differently. And one thing I learned early on in my bowhunting career was, the more arrows I would throw at animals, it seemed like I got better at it. And if you can go kill a late season doe, when I'm talking late season, I'm talking December, January, in the timber or wherever your opportunity takes you, and you can consistently do that, that's a hard thing to do because they are very worried. They're very skittish that time of year. They've been tired of getting pushed around. Do you have coyotes in the area? There's just a whole lot of elements that they've been educated for the last 60, 90 days. And so I figured that early on, and I just started whacking does late season. Yes, for the meat, of course, but also I wanted to curve my bow hunting understanding. And the more you do something, the more repetition, the easier it becomes. And I think as a young bow hunter, here's a tip that I wish I would have known in my 20s that I didn't experience until I think I went on my first Western hunt when I was 32 or 33. And if you have the opportunity to go west and you have to go spot and stalk and you have to know when to draw, when to move, and use the terrain to all your advantages, you will completely change your woodmanship and bow hunting tactics and skill set way faster than you would sitting in a tree or in a box blind or wherever your whitetail hunting strategy is going to take you. It just catapulted me so fast because you make so many mistakes when you're on the ground. There's so much more things you've got to know and do. And from a mental standpoint, bow hunting is so mental, and buck fever is a real thing. And I think it's just like the more you do it, the better you're going to get. And don't get all fired up about shooting a 170. Just everything takes its steps, and the more you do it, the better you're going to get. And it just gets enjoyable every single year. Just stay after it. Just don't give up. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, because I think back of some of the bucks I've killed with my bow. If it was a mature doe in late winter, I don't know if I would have got away with as much as a rutted out buck in the peak rut of November. Usually that buck's coming by himself, cruising along, not paying attention, versus a doe that is methodical with every step, headed to a destination food source. Do you think killing a rutting buck is easier than shooting a matriarch doe in January in the woods? And I'm talking from the moment of I see the deer, so not on locating a buck, and I'm talking you're in the stand in a parallel universe. First universe, 5.5-year-old buck comes dogging, looking for a doe, not paying much attention. Peak rut. Option number 2, you're in the woods and it's, I don't know, January 14th and it's 10 degrees and a doe is slowly meandering and moving very thoughtfully. Which one do you think in reality is more challenging? Not the comparison of opportunities, because you could probably go find, if you screw up the doe, you can probably go get another opportunity somewhat quick. But I'm talking, you see the deer 60 yards away from that moment moving forward. Which one do you think is more challenging?
I don't think there's a doubt. I would have to say a mature doe late season, because a buck during the rut, my experience tells me you get away with a lot, and they seem to be a very one-tracked mind. They really don't pay attention. I've gotten away with murder with a buck in the rut. I'm like, man, I can't believe I pulled that off. It happened, but it all worked out. But a doe wouldn't have put up with it. She just wouldn't have.
Yeah,
because he's so focused and so narrow-minded. He's got one thing on his brain, and he can't figure it out, And so he puts up with way more. I mean, how many times do you see crazy things happen where a rutted buck comes in, it gets missed, and he pounces 5 to 6 feet because he's tending a doe? Well, if that doe's not there, he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
His mindset is that. And so I think it's the mindset of these animals that are completely different and polar opposite. It very much reminds me of shooting a buck over a decoy. We had a great experience this past fall in Missouri that we hunted, I think it was 9 straight days, 5 of which were all day sits. Yeah, 5 all day sits. And when a buck comes to the plot and you got a decoy, he's either in the mood, or he's not. But when he is, it's over. When he's not, he's just passing through. He'll look, he'll pay attention, and then he'll, but when they come and he comes on a string, they come on a string. Why? And it could be the same deer from the previous day and he changed it from the next day. But when they're in that mood. It's deer are like people. Everybody has different personalities. I've had deer that I chased that were fighters. I've had deer that they never broke a tine in their entire life. That tells me that they're lovers, they're not fighters. So they avoid other deer. But when they're in that mood, they're in that mood. And when they're in that mood, man, you can get away with a lot of stuff that you would normally not get away with. And I can't say that about a late season doe.
Yeah. How do you measure the risk versus reward with using a decoy? I watched a video here earlier where, I think it was in reference to the Missouri hunt or a Missouri hunt where you had a decoy out there. The buck you're coming after or hunting that evening is the second to come out. And the first buck came out and pestered with the decoy, and then the buck ran off. And that's always, I've never used a decoy because I'm always scared of that versus an incredible experience of a buck doing exactly what you want. How do you balance that risk?
I love it. I personally love it. I've been using decoy for, I don't know, probably 15, 18 years, probably. I love it because when a deer comes out, it's a coin flip, whether they're going to be drawn in or not, but they flip. And when they flip like that, their mind is in one thing, and that is, I'm coming to you, meaning the decoy. Nothing else matters. He's sidestepping, he's bristled up, and you see your deer be deer that we normally don't get to see. And I just think that's absolutely fascinating. Even if I don't kill them, I think it's the coolest shit on the planet.
It is cool.
Just because I get to see those deer react the way Mother Nature wanted them to do it. And yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out, of course. But I would say we win more than we lose.
Mm-hmm.
And so long as we keep doing that, I'm going to come the 25th of October or 27th of October, that decoy never leaves my truck. It's in there and it stays. And I make my decision based on location and what we're doing and the deer we're after. What kind of animal are we? When I say that is I try to understand their personalities, because every deer has a personality. Like there was one that we called Major League. That was my very first 200-inch deer. I would never use a decoy on him because he never fought, never broke a tine his entire life. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to bring a decoy to try to bring him in. He just won't come. Mm-hmm. He'll just avoid it.
I've noticed this, and I don't know if this is just my gut feeling. Do you feel that I'm talking top end deer? So no matter where you're at in the country, if you're in Iowa, maybe it's a 200-inch deer. If you're in wherever else, it might be a lower scoring deer. But do you feel that some of the highest end deer are inherently passive?
I will. When you say high, are you talking like 70s or bigger? Are you talking 90s or bigger? Let's chase age, because score kind of doesn't really follow age. It does, but it doesn't. I mean, I've seen some giants at 4-year-old that were 180s.
Yeah. So I'm talking high scoring deer.
High scoring deer. All the high scoring deer that I've shot are all 6, 7, and 8 years old. And I'm going through my head. All of them, I would classify them as loners. Meaning they really don't want to be around other deer. When they hit the plot, the other deer know that he's the king of the plot, and they give him space, and he kind of works through how he wants to work through. Now, it will happen. We had an 8-point that was, I think he was 5 years old when we killed him, and he was just a flat out bully. It didn't matter what deer came on the plot, he was going to challenge him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, we got to find a way to get this guy dead as fast as we can, because he's going to push some other really higher genetics deer off the farm. And so we shifted our hit list that year and focused on him for that reason. But to answer your question more, I would say they're pretty much loners, and they prefer to be alone. And they're always, more often than not, the last one to arrive, and really don't really care about what the other deer are doing.
Mm-hmm. What other trends have you noticed among, just think of your top 5 bucks you've shot? So typically they're loners. Would you say they're typically more nomadic, or also the other end of that would
When you
be
say nomadic, that means they're constantly moving on. That's the word
it, yeah,
nomadic
nomadic, no,
means.
no rhyme or reason. No rhyme or
No rhyme or
reason.
reason.
Yeah.
I disagree with that.
Okay.
I would say all the ones that I've tipped over, their territory has shrunk.
Mm.
They're way more sensitive. They're way more understanding when they come out. You can see when they come out, they really pause, they gather themselves, they look left, they look right, they scan around before they don't like a 3-4-year-old. They come on the plot and they charge, they get to the middle and then they kind of hang out, hey, I'm here, and they start looking around. With a mature big animal like that, their presence is very slow. They come out, they look, they scan, they monitor, they get comfortable with where they are. Everything's still in place. Nothing looks out of the ordinary. Now I'm going to go do what I want to go do, and then settle in. They're just very more aware of what's happening and very slow.
Is that because it's, a lot of these deer you have multiple years of history with too? Is that a trait that they have even when they are a more immature buck?
I would say that that's an age thing, not a size thing. As deer get older, they seem to be more slower and more methodical of the actions they're about to take. A younger one, say 4 years and younger, they kind of do what deer do, and they're part of the community. If there's a bunch of deer over there, he's going to go kind of hang out and be close to them. But these bigger and older ones, I don't care if there's a bunch of deer over there. I'm fine over here. I'm good with it. I don't need to be by him. They just kind of do their own thing on their timeline, unless something causes them to react. Right, coyotes, something happens. But if they're just doing normal, they just kind of go on their own timeline and their own way of thinking, which is used traditionally quite slow.
Yeah, because I was just the root of that question is, if there was a deer that you shot when the deer was 6 or 7, and you're like, man, even when he was 3 or 4, that deer just had a different cadence amongst other deer, and I'm not.
It changes with age. I wouldn't say it changes with score.
Okay.
It changes with age.
Okay. Let me ask you this: do you think chasing top end deer makes you a better hunter or just a different kind of hunter?
I would say I wouldn't say I'm better. I would just say I'm different. I went through the progression of hunting where, I shot a lot of little stuff, and, I'm like, okay, I've done that. I really got into deer management, said, why do I need another 130 class deer? Let's go after a 140. And I may or may not shoot one that year, but that was my goal. And let's see if we can get them a year older, see if we can pass them. And so I just kept doing that year after year after year, and it just kind of became a progression and a challenge. And I enjoy letting them go as much as I love, tipping them over, because some of these deer genetically are doing things that I never thought was possible, because we're letting them go and getting old. And so that becomes more fascinating to me to stay down that path.
Whether you're hunting public or private land, onX puts powerful mapping tools right in your pocket. See property lines, access wind, and weather data. I have thousands of pins from the last 10 years, and it is one of the most effective tools for planning a hunt, to in-hunt, to post-hunt. Know where you stand, know the land, own the hunt with onX.
That's fair. Because I feel that that's a pretty healthy perspective, because I think that I just finished up. Well, we finished recording the series for Back 40, and I had a panel of experts, right? And the comments on those are like, yeah, that's great. These guys only want to shoot giant deer, but every one of them started out with exactly what you just said. And it's like, I can't compare myself to Greg. I haven't hunted as long as you have. It'd be totally unfair for me to do that.
100%. I agree. We all have to go through our curve. And the faster you can move through it, whether you hunt more or hunt less, it'll shorten that curve, of course, but it's all important. We can't take the elevator for success. We all have to take the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no faster way to get this done besides spending more time out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
And these guys that have these expectations that, hey, I'm, my last deer, my biggest deer is a 120, and I'm not going to shoot anything that's a 170. Don't take the fun out of it. Do stepping stones. If you want to hang out and try to shoot a 170, and when the last one's a 120, best of luck. But I'll tell you one thing: you can't shoot something that's not there. So if he's not there, then readjust your expectations.
All right, I'm gonna. This is gonna be an uncomfortable question for you. All right, Greg, I'm your new neighbor, and I just took up deer hunting. I have never killed a deer before. I am brand new, and man, I want to shoot my first Pope and Young buck, and I want to have 15 Pope and Young bucks until I start climbing this ladder.
Well, I'm gonna do my best to let him do his learn curve, but we don't need to shoot more than one a year. But we need to do stepping stones, and I'm going to take a lot of time to educate him and try to convince him or show him the way of how we all win, but still allowing him to harvest a deer that he wants to harvest. Because if you take it out of him, all you're going to do is become enemies. Yeah. So you got to work within it, and still, because I went through that curve. So why am I going to take that away from him? That's not fair. But I learned very early on there's steps to this, and I'm going to try to take him through those steps, and hopefully he buys into that.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. Okay, this is another far out question. There is a mature buck convention. They're all meeting in Des Moines, Iowa, and they all have to vote. They're saying, "Hey, what are these humans doing that is just totally wrong?" So there's a convention of mature bucks, and they're voting on the number one mistake hunters make. What do these mature bucks say in this meeting? Like, man, we still can't believe they're still doing this. What idiots.
In general, I would say we as hunters are our worst enemy, meaning that I wish more people would learn to hunt less and kill more. And when I figured that out, our kill rate went up as well, which is patience is a very hard thing to live by, but it pays dividends by a factor of 100. And people want to go out there because they say, well, it gives me a chance to harvest. Well, does it? Do you have the right wind? Do you have the right pressure? All those type of things. And when you be patient and stack things into your favor, one, the hunting experience is going to be 10 times better. You're going to see more animals. Your opportunity is going to be better because you have less scent control that's going in and out there X number of times. And it goes back to hunting less is going to allow you to kill more. I would say pressure without a doubt would probably be the one.
When did you learn that? Because I feel like that we're talking about progression, right? And so,
yes.
And so
it took me a while.
Yeah. A lot of people, a lot of really successful hunters say something similar to that. But admittedly, maybe I'm just a slow learner. I feel like, I've tried to be more thoughtful with that, with what you just said. But I also feel like that's part of the progression to know when to be patient in order to have the success where, you have FOMO if you're not out. And I
have FOMO all year long.
Okay.
I do, but I live and die by, Onyx weather app and other weather tools that I use to go, you know what? There's times we have guests in camp because they have a 3-day window. And I lay in bed going, if they weren't here, I wouldn't be going hunting. But we have 3 days, so we have to go.
Yeah.
Because I know what we're doing, and I would prefer not to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you handle that?
Well, we go because it's an obligation. They only have 3 days. But it's up till now, there's only been one exception. We only take gun hunters because I'm trying to minimize the pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and increase success rate, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So
Well,
with gun, people want to have fun, a good time. It's less pressure. Can't shoot a bow 100 yards. So, but we can shoot 150, 200 with a gun. So,
wait, you let people hunt your farm, Greg? I thought you were just super selfish and only keep your farm to yourself. And
no,
let
I
everyone-
don't. I do. We do helping heroes. We've done a lot of other things. Some high school kids, giving the opportunity to people who normally would never have, and trying to expose the outdoors to different people who either want to have served our country, who deserve it more than anybody, or somebody who maybe doesn't have the opportunity to because of financial capabilities, or just mom and dad don't hunt, but they want to try it. There's a million of those type of stories. And so we try to do one, if not two a year.
That's cool. That's really cool that you do that. Okay, here's another question. Okay, we've had a lot of technological advances. We were talking about it before we started recording, not in the capacity of hunting whatsoever, but if you had, so basically I'm stripping away all technology, and what I'm throwing technology in here is trail cameras, a high quality blind, rangefinders, lighted nocks, the gambit goes down, but you only get to keep one of those things. What is it?
Yeah, that's deep. I would have to go, which is an unfair answer, but I'm going to beat you at your own question. I would go with the Onyx Hunt app for one reason, because I get weather in it, I get topo map, I get terrain change, I get a rangefinder within that app.
Yeah.
I get line of distance, I get area shape, I get all those things that I can use to manage the farm and do my best to harvest. Because what I would quickly do, and we have done it a lot, which is getting away from rangefinder. I'm a huge rangefinder guy because I want to know where they are. But in food plot scenarios, if you ever watch some of our videos, more often than not, you may see a line of a transition from brassicas to clover or vice versa. Well, that line probably is at 30 yards. So I don't have to ask myself. They crest that line, I know they're there at 30 yards. So that's a tip that I learned a long time ago, that you can kind of, or if you do a scrape tree, always put it at 25 so you always know, or 20, whatever your number is. I don't care, but you do it consistently. And so that you're trying to eliminate some of these mental things you've got to work through. And so there's ways around using different tools that you can plan accordingly and do things differently to get rid of some of these technology things that you've had mentioned. But I would go on X without a doubt, because it's so depth, and
that's a great answer, honestly.
It doesn't handcuff me like these other ones would, and it really solves a lot of my problems. We live and die by Onyx. I mean, it's a daily thing for us. Daily.
Agreed. Web browser. I have an Onyx tab open on my computer at all times, which is probably not a great productivity thing, but I use it all the time. And to your point, it's so robust with all the things that you could do with it. Here's a question for you. You hunt in Wisconsin, you hunt in Iowa and Missouri. Is there something that works in Wisconsin that does not work in Iowa or Missouri? Because it would, and the reason I ask it that way too is because I feel like there's a perception of like, oh, that works in Iowa, but it doesn't work in Wisconsin. So I'm asking, what works in Wisconsin that does not necessarily work in Iowa, for example? Or maybe what doesn't work might be an easier.
I'll give you one that does work everywhere, which is late season grain, whether it's bean or corn. Once you get past, Christmas and it's late and you have grain, it's not if you're going to see your target, but if he's still alive, it's just a matter of when. That is probably, I talk to a lot of guys that hunt a lot. They would say that's probably their favorite time of year to hunt, because they know they're going to see him. It's just
if he's alive. Yeah, people are effective now.
Yeah, but the downside of this, and this is the argument I always bring to people, like if I'm doing a seminar and we're out in the hallway and it's over and we get into this argument, I'm like, I don't disagree with you. I love late season. The problem with late season is there's a chance the deer that you started with in September 15 or October 1st may not be around by then. And depending on who harvested, did it make social media or did it not? Or did he tell you, or did he move a mile away and you don't know that neighbor and he gets killed and you're sitting there X number of days hunting your late season,
Just
January, December, waiting, thinking he's coming and he's never going to make it because he's already in the freezer somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's the part about late season that I don't like. I don't plan my season around late season.
Mm-hmm.
But I sure enjoy it because of what we just mentioned.
Yeah, and I think that advice has likely changed over the last 5 or 10 years as people have gotten more effective. I mean, that's my opinion.
Oh, I agree. Oh, yeah. Technology, the bows, the broadheads, podcasts like this, social media, everybody's learning curve. I mean, when I started this, Jake, I had to go to seminars to get the knowledge that I'm sharing with you today. I had to go sit down with a notepad and take off work and go to a local seminar and listen to a Greg Miller or whoever was giving a seminar. That name may not even ring a bell with anybody because he's still around, but I mean, he was kind of the guy in Wisconsin, was Greg Miller. And I learned a ton from him. He had a few great books I'd recommend anybody reading. Wenzel Brothers wrote some great books as well. They're still out there. I'd recommend those as well. Mm-hmm. It was all print and seminars. That's in magazines. That's how I learned. Or somebody who was passionate about whitetail hunting was willing to give me 20 minutes or an hour of their time, and I would just sit there and drill them with questions.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it's trial and error. Failure is your best teacher. We all know that. It sucks, but it is your best teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here's a last question before we get into rapid fire. So, Land and Legacy is part of your crew here.
Yep.
Was there a point where they showed up on one of your farms? You're like, Greg, what the hell are you doing? This is not right. You need to try to do this. And I say that tongue in cheek because I feel like it would be like a friendly banter, not like they're trying to put their thumb on you. But was there anything that their perspective and they came in like, why are you doing it this way? This doesn't make sense. Maybe you should try this.
Well, I think I can't really answer it truthfully because I'm going to give you a reason why. I was Land and Legacy's first customer.
That's cool.
I knew Adam when he was in college. Adam was my first camera guy. And so when he got to working with Grant Woods, and he was there for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years or whatever, we were talking on the phone, still friends and all that stuff. And I was picking his brain back then. And then when they became Land and Legacy, he goes, hey, we're going to do this thing. And I'm like, hey, I'm your first customer. Let's go walk this together. That first walk, we were like this. I mean, 2 bulls in a china shop, respectfully, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, man, Adam, that's the minute you cut a tree, it will never grow back in my lifetime. And that was very hard for me to get my head around that because once you cut them, they're gone. And he's like, Greg, you're just going to have to trust me. And it took me a while to get there. But when I did, and I said, okay, let's just do a test, right? Let's just take this little part. We'll start here. We'll do it your way. And I'm going to feather in kind of things that I want to do. And let's just kind of meet in the middle. And that's what we did. And then over the years, it just got better and better. And he's learned some stuff from us. We've learned some stuff from him because, I mean, I think they've walked almost 600 farms since they've started. So his scope of knowledge has just escalated way faster than mine because he's seen all these farms with boots on the ground. Mm-hmm. How do you, once again, we talk about learn curve, right? If you want to shorten it, do more of it. And they're doing a lot of it more than me. And so he is now spitting knowledge back to me saying, hey, I saw this over in Kansas. What do you think? I'm like, it's not a bad idea. Or, you know what? I don't know if I like that. And so it's been a huge benefit because they are so knowledgeable and they're so talented in their space and they know everything and every plant and every tree and the cause and the downstream effect of everything. And so I would recommend anybody who's new into this to work with a consultant so that you shorten your learn curve, maximize your potential way faster and enjoy your property way faster and not do what I did, which was self-taught, self-mistakes, and it costs you more in the end. It's way cheaper to have a consultant. And, they'll meet you in the middle. They're going to write a plan and say, hey, this is what we think. And if you're uncomfortable with, say, this 30%, I'm really uncomfortable with it, then don't do it. but they will move you in the right direction. And that's a huge thing that I would share with anybody.
I think there's an ego thing where people don't want, like, you're not going to come on my farm and tell me something I don't know.
Sure.
But I couldn't agree more, because mistakes can be costly from a time perspective, which is probably the most impactful part of that. I mean, you could make an argument for money, but it's really time. And
It's time.
The faster you're enjoying your property and you're holding more deer and you're having more opportunities. Yeah.
The one thing I don't like about whitetail hunting, or just hunting in general, the season comes around once a year. And for them to get bigger, they have to age. Well, they can't get bigger but once a year, right? On their birthday. That's it. And so this whitetail hunting is such a long game. It's long game on habitat improvement. It's long game on letting deer age. It's long game on anything that you want to do to your land that's going to helpfully do something better, that's going to increase your potential of harvest. Nothing is overnight. And I think that's the part that most people overlook or get frustrated with. And it is true discipline to stay after it year after year after year. And when you do, and you start making these improvements, it does change. You just got to keep doing it.
People are inherently impatient.
Yes.
And that's probably there's a lot of, I feel like being a good hunter boils down to patience, based off of this conversation, whether it's patience of seeing projects through and patience of knowing when and what to do.
Agreed. Mother Nature always wins, and she's constantly changing the landscape every single year. And if you're not, making notes, paying attention, when you go into the woods, and I don't care if you're going in there for a purpose after a deer, you want to enjoy the hunt, but put down your phone and pay attention of what deer's coming from what side. Why were they last year coming from the northwest corner of your plot? Now they're coming from maybe north central. They moved over 75 to 100 or 125 yards. Why is that? Well, make a note of it. Walk in there in springtime when you're shed hunting, go, okay, what happened? Well, maybe a tree fell down. Maybe a windstorm came and it cut off that thing. Well, we set our stuff up so that 85%, 90% of all deer are going to be in front of us. And so we can't get 100%, but I'm going to stack it in my favor. And when things start to change, come spring, we go in there and we fix it. Why did that happen? What changed? Why did they move? Because now I have less of a wind direction. I want maximum wind direction. And so we're constantly making those adjustments on the off season based on what we see during the fall.
When we were chatting here, you mentioned something about, first, this is a tree stand setting. I know that I said that was my last question, but most times there's not a spot that is completely bulletproof. There's some that may be very close to it, but I'm talking 100% bulletproof, less, not very likely. But is there a margin of error that you aim for? Like, okay, this spot I think will be effective 70% of the time, 60% of the time, 50% of the time. Is there a metric in your head that when you look at a spot that comes to mind?
I always try to be 80 to 85%, probably 80%, probably 8 out of 10 deer, 8.5, 85%, probably. The problem, if you start going south of 80, now let's go say you get into 60 or 70%. Let's go 60, 65%. So that's almost 1/3 of the deer coming where you don't want them. It's not if, it's when that deer that you're chasing is going to do that. So I really want to be 8 out of 10 or more to do that. But we spent a lot of energy, time. We fell in love with a product called Big Time Borderline, which is a screening product. And we use a lot of cedar trees, stacking them up, and we use Big Time. So that I don't care if a deer hears me. I don't care. They don't know what it is. I don't want them to see me, and I don't want them to smell me. And when we get out of our sets within 2 feet, we are literally gone. Visually, we're gone. And I have had a sidekick, whether it's a camera guy or maybe it's a guest hunter. I would say, hey, you go ahead and leave now because here's a window. I want to see what this buck's going to do. I'll meet you at the truck. And I do that because I want to see what this person, when he leaves, what the deer do.
It's like a test to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I let them leave, let them walk, and it may be, 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever the duration may be. And if they do what I tell them to do, they look, they scan, they're concerned, they know something's over there, but they can't piece it together. And within 3 to 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever it may be, they're back to being what they were doing. Because we have the wind, they heard it, they can't piece it together. They just go, oh, it's another deer, it's a coyote, it's something, but it's not a threat to me, so I'm okay.
Mm-hmm. That's a great piece of advice. Okay, rapid fire. We're gonna wrap this up. Okay, here we go. One hunting superstition you secretly believe in.
Oh my. I don't know. I don't think I have one. We live and die by the weather. I mean, we don't go, I don't know if that's superstition or not. I don't hunt bad weather days. A lot of it is kitchen passes. We all only get so many from the wives. And so I want to maximize my time, and I don't go until it's good. And when it's in our favor, we go. But I don't, that's not a superstition. It's just data points. I don't know if I have one. I don't, I have, if you want to talk about it, I have a superstition over decoys. I mean, I get in this debate all the time at seminars. Guys think I'm crazy. They think I'm borderline stupid. It's a waste of time. I freaking love them. I think it's the enjoyment that it brings to watch deer be deer. Yes, does it blow some hunts up? It does. But if that's a superstition, you will never see me not have a decoy in my truck from the 26th or 27th of October through November 12th. Cop pulls me over, you pull me over. What's in your trunk? That's a decoy.
Okay, so in that period of time, how many times do you use it? So the 27th to the 12th?
Almost every day.
Whoa.
If I won't take it to the woods because it's too loud to get in and out because I'm hitting too many limbs or whatever. And if you're going in an hour early, it's dark. I can't see. That big object is hitting limbs. I tried it once. It was a mess. I said, dumb idea. If we're doing a food plot setup or some type of transition where it's open ground and I can pull them from a CRP field or something like that, you dang right I'm taking it. Absolutely.
Admittedly, I found a Dave Smith decoy on Facebook Marketplace like 2 years ago. Got a great deal on it. And I have not used it once because I am too superstitious.
I'll be happy to buy it from you. At a red tag sale.
Yeah. Do you use it for gun hunting too?
No, because you can reach out and touch them so far, right? Because I've had deer that come out on an edge of a plot and they stop at the edge, they look at them, and they go right back in, right? With a gun, I don't need them. I want them to come out and just settle long enough to pull the trigger. So I can't recall ever taking a decoy for gun season. Maybe I have. If I had, it'd be such a rare opportunity. It's not in my memory.
Mm-hmm. What's one word that describes a mature whitetail?
Loner.
Okay. Are you a gut feeling or data? What do you trust more?
Data.
In the moment. In the moment, even?
Oh, in the moment.
So you wake up and let's go back 10 years ago. You wake up, you don't have cell cameras, and the night before you had a plan, and then you wake up with this hunch, like I need to go here. Which one do you trust more?
Probably my gut, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, because if I don't follow my gut, then I'm going to regret it that afternoon.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, food source, bedding, or travel corridor. You only get to pick one.
That is the most unfair question of the day, Jake, because every farm is so different. All of our farms are so different. None of them are the same. And so the one thing I don't like hunting about corridors, which is going to be typically a draw or a wooded area, is you have potential of really blowing stuff out. So my question is, this question would help me more if you said it's this time of year,
It's between the 27th of October and November 12th.
I get hit on one spot. See, I'm not trying to dodge it, but the deer dictates what we hunt, because we're usually chasing one, if not two deer.
Well,
For myself, I'm speaking.
imagine you're not hunting a farm that you've developed. Hey Greg,
Mm.
come on out to Illinois, and my farm's not fully set up. Here's the keys. You have the 27th to the 12th, but here's the rule. This is the only rule. You can shoot whatever you want, but you can only hunt one of these 3 terrain features. And hey, guess what? I've been too busy. I haven't hung cameras. I have no clue.
Then I would find me a bottleneck in a timber or woodlot or something that shrinks down less inside of 40 yards.
Okay.
That's got a creek bank against my back that I can cast the wind over, that they can't get downwind of me. And I know it's a good thorough way, maybe between food sources or bedding areas or something, that I know it's going to create movement to and from, and the does are going to transfer through and bucks are going to follow and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So that's probably what I do with a good entry and exit strategy. I know I'm not answering your question because I'm not playing fair now, but that's if that's the scenario, that's what I would do.
Okay,
hands down, with a bow, right? With a bow,
yeah.
That's what I would do.
All right, last question. We kind of touched on this already, but I'm just curious, just to put you on the spot, and you have to decide. You can only plant one food source. Early green season hunt and plant, or plant and hunt rather. Early season grain plots or a late season grain.
Well, you better define it better than that, because if you're going to let me go, grain, I'm going to go beans, because beans early season is very strong until they go brown. We usually in Iowa and Missouri, we're going to get a minimum of 9, if not potentially 2 to 2.5 weeks, depending on the weather and what number of bean you're going to plant.
What number of bean do you plant if you want to have that window?
I don't control that, because I lease out the farms, and so I just pray that we have some of those opportunities to come. But for the typical guy, I would say the best year-round plot would be a clover field, because it's gonna here's the reason why I'm going to tell you this. Clover is going to give you the best year-round source for your deer herd. Meaning, depending on the clover mix, they're going to vary from 18 to 22% protein. There's nothing else out there that you can plant that's going to generate that type of, and it's easy to maintain. They're going to argue that alfalfa is strong. Alfalfa, I believe, is in the high teens as well, but it's very difficult to maintain. You got to have hay equipment. You got to cut at least 2, if not 3 times. You got to get it off. You got to bale it, all those things. And after a first cut, when it's cut, it's not palatable for at least 5 to 6 days until it greens up and gets these small little, very tender leaves on them. But with clover, turkeys love them. The deer love it. It's the first thing to green up in the spring. It goes all the way through the fall if you have a big enough plot and your tonnage is good enough. So if you tell me to pick one, I would go with clover, just because I know I'm going to hunt over it. It's going to produce a lot. It's going to be great for my deer herd, and it's going to give me a bigger window of opportunity to potentially harvest the deer I'm chasing.
I love it. Well, Greg, I really appreciate your time. And I'll say this, on the decoy footage that you guys have with the camera on top of it, it is cool as heck. The one hunt I was referencing, that other buck that wasn't a target buck, he's just doing the paw left, right. And it's I encourage everyone to go over to your YouTube channel and watch those hunts, because they're very well done. And man, I was ready for deer season after watching that video. I was like, man, that is so cool.
Well, we stepped up our game. It's taken me about a decade to figure out how to film that stuff off a decoy without being too obtrusive, to bring attention to it. And so I won't give away the secret, because it's taken me a long time to figure it out.
I was going to ask the setup, but I was guessing it was a proprietary.
It's a lot of trial and error and a lot of mistakes that I've made.
Yeah,
but it's going to be even ramped up this year. I've spent this past summer really doing some homework because of guys like yourself saying that is some really cool stuff. So we've been working on it this summer to step up that game even better. So hopefully our work pays off, because I enjoy the heck out of it. It's a cool angle. It's fun. Like I said, it allows the deer to be deer. And when you get them within 10 or 15 yards of that decoy and you see how they react instead of 30 or 40 or 50 yards, seeing their eyes come out of their head and their eyes roll back, all bristled up, to me, that's why we go out there.
Yeah. Well, where can everyone follow along with what you have going on? I encourage everyone to go and do that, because you have some really high quality content and really enjoy it.
I appreciate it. We're all over social media on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. It's Huntworks, HUNTWORX. We're on TikTok as well. But we release a video on YouTube once a week. We've been doing that all the way since January, and we're going to do that all the way through the end of the year. But I love the support, love the follow or a subscribe. I appreciate it greatly. Love the comments, guys. If you guys have any feedback that you want to see more of or less of, or you have questions, if you want to DM me on the Huntworks Instagram page, please do, and I'll do my best to get back to you. And I love learning from the public as well. I mean, I'm not the guy who's going to say I know everything. I know a little bit, but I don't know it all, and I'm still learning. So I've learned some stuff from some DM guys. I'm like, hey, that's a really good idea. I might steal that from you if you don't mind. So, and thanks, Jake, for having me on. I enjoy what you're doing, and congrats on the new ventures with your horror podcast and getting the YouTube channel purchased. I think that was a fabulous move for you, and it's only up from here. So appreciate your time as well and reaching out. I'm always open book and always happy to help, and we can always do it again.
When I'm out in Iowa with my late muzzleloader tag, we'll have to do an in-person episode. I feel like that'd be a lot of fun.
I'd love to have you over. Love to.
Yeah, we'll do that. Awesome, Greg. Thank you so much. There you guys have it. Thank you so much for making it this far. It would mean the world if you hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I want to say thanks to Moultrie, Hawk Optics, Painted Arrow, and Onyx for supporting the show, and we will see you next time. We have a bunch of other podcasts here on the channel if you haven't checked them out, and we're going to be dropping some Whitetail Cribs episodes here very soon. So we will see you next time. Bye.